Webinar, a virtual event series created exclusively for RIT alumni. Today's webinar is entitled Engineering Leadership, an Overview of Programs at RIT. Our presenter is Mark Smith, Director of Multidisciplinary Programs in RIT's Kate Gleason College of Engineering. In his role at RIT, Mark is responsible for graduate programs in product development and manufacturing leadership, as well as certificates and other customized course offerings for corporate clients. He is also serving as director of the John D. Hromi Center for Quality and Applied Statistics. Prior to joining RIT, Mr. Smith spent nearly 20 years in medical electronics R&D in both technical and management roles. He has a BS in engineering science from the University of Virginia and an MS in electrical engineering from the University of Rochester. Also joining Mark is Lou Fantozzi, Manager of Business Development in the Kate Gleason College of Engineering. Gentlemen, take it away.
Good afternoon. I guess it is afternoon. It's after 12. Thank you again for joining us. And as Lydia mentioned, we encourage you to input questions that you have in process. I think it's easier to do it that way than to hold everything to the very end, but it's really up to you. So as Lydia mentioned, we're going to be talking about some graduate programs that are in the engineering domain, but have a strong partnership with the Saunders College of Business. These are relatively unique programs. You're not going to find them in too many other universities, so we wanted to take some time here to make you aware of those, some of the options that are available to you or to your colleagues for continuing their education here through RIT. So I guess I should move ahead. There we go. Okay, so that's the caption. So this is the portfolio of programs that we're going to talk about today. As Lydia mentioned earlier, the Product Development Master's Program is a blend of business management and systems engineering management, and you can see who it really targets. It targets professionals in engineering, R&D, and advanced manufacturing. We also have a Master of Science in Manufacturing Leadership, which has a broad applicability for people that are focused on process excellence, so it applies within the operations domain in manufacturing, supply chain improvement, and other areas. And then from those two graduate programs, those official master's degree programs, we have a series of certificates, graduate certificate programs that we've crafted with corporate sponsorship. In particular, we have a 3-course certificate in systems engineering, another in supply chain management, and one in project management. And although we've offered those most normally for corporate clients, those are also available to individual students, particularly if they're thinking about going on for a full master's program, but may not be quite ready to dive into a full program and instead want to take a few courses and get a credential upon completing them. All of these programs emphasize leadership and decision-making. As I mentioned earlier, they have engineering and business content with a strong systems orientation. They're all online, and they're really for experienced practitioners. These are not for the new graduates that just got out of an undergraduate program. So, if you're looking for something else, please contact Lou Fantozzi or leave a message for us, and we'll be happy to refer you elsewhere. Questions? Any questions? We're waiting for chats, so anytime. Okay, so I'm going to dive right into the Product Development Master of Science. Just historically, this is an outgrowth of something called the Center for Innovation and Product Development at MIT, which consisted of a group of companies and universities that were focused on helping U.S. corporations become more competitive by strengthening leadership in product and services innovation. So this has a fairly long and rich history as a partnership between corporate America as well as the university environment. But you can see that the product innovation is really the program theme. This was not some existing program that we just try to tailor a little bit more to product development, but it really started from the ground up. We developed the courses and the learning objectives based on what this consortium believed were really important to help U.S. companies become leaders in product innovation. As I said earlier, I'll just remind you again that this is for engineers, scientists, technical managers, but again, people with experience. It has a strong systems orientation, which is really at the core. That's about managing complexity and really a strategic level systems engineering around decision making. This is really not for a practitioner level systems engineer. We have, in addition to the required courses in the program, which consist of 12 courses, and I'll go over that in a second, we have 2 electives and a capstone project that are tailored, that allow you to tailor your program to individual and business needs. The Master of Science started in 1999. We have roughly 13 to 15 students every year. We have almost 200 graduates, and currently we have about 65 students in the program at various points, from starting to just about completing. As I said, it's a 36-credit degree program, which with 12 courses is fully online, and the admission requirement is 2 years of experience, a 3.0 GPA. We prefer a technical degree, but we have some students that come from more of a business background, some that are industrial design, which adds some really interesting diversity to the cohort that we have, and there might be some others by exception. So even though a 3.0 is required, you know, if you don't have a 3.0, we're certainly willing to take a look at you, because oftentimes if you've been in industry for quite some time, there's lots of other things that you've been able to accomplish, and we certainly want to give you appropriate credit for that. I should mention that there really are only a handful of schools that offer this program. There's really only 5 at the present time, including Northwestern, Carnegie Mellon, MIT, University of Detroit, Naval Postgraduate School. So there are not a lot of them around. So as I said earlier, this really is a pretty unique program. So that's the overview. Let me jump into the curriculum. As I said, it really emphasizes leadership and decision-making. The first 3 bullet points outline the core courses in the master's program, which again focus on leadership, systems, and sort of product and process development. So we have an excellence in product development course, which deals with both personal as well as organizational leadership challenges. Then there's a pretty traditional project management course that focuses on the project management body of knowledge. About half the course is about people management, and the other half is process management. And then really the essence of the program is embedded in the Engineering of Systems 1 and 2 course, which is about managing and reducing complexity, but it really looks at the integration of product, process, supply chain design. It includes elements of lean product development, a lot of different techniques focused on outsourcing, requirements management, and a host of tools like critical parameter management, robust design, and so on. So that's really a 1-year shared dual course. It's 1 and 2. One course is in the fall semester and the second is in the spring. And that really highlights, I think, the differentiated quality of the Master's of Science in Product Development. So after this core, then we have a series of other courses that I'd really call enablers, and they provide some of the supporting skills. The first course that's at the bottom of this slide is called Decision and Risk Analysis. It deals with both probabilistic and non-probabilistic methods of managing risk. Then on the next slide, show the other required courses, Operations and Supply Chain Management. We have Accounting for Decision Makers, because obviously everything that you do requires keeping track, and companies keep track using dollars and cents, so everybody needs to understand a basic amount about accounting. And then we also have a basic course in marketing. And I should just mention that, you know, we're not trying to make anybody an expert in any of these fields. This is meant to provide a fairly well-rounded, broad curriculum to help you be much better at making decisions based on information that's provided to you. So you're not going to be the marketing expert, but you'll know if somebody submits a marketing plan that's really not very strong. You may not be an accountant, but you'll really understand whether that project plan and whether the business case for that particular product makes sense or not. So we want to put you in a position that allows you to be a better decision maker and a better leader. So that really rounds out the required courses in the program, with the exception of the Capstone Project 1 and 2. And there are two core ingredients to the Capstone Project. One is that it has to address a real business problem, which means that there's a pretty significant return on investment to that project. And then it also has to have a scholarly component. So it's not a thesis, but it does need to add something new to the state of the art. And that could be something like a case study or something real world, but it doesn't have to. It's not talking about inventing something new, but it's making sure that you're representing the state of the art in whatever area you happen to decide to work. And one last but hardly least are the 2 electives. So we provide both business and engineering electives for you, a pretty broad set. I'll list a few of them here that have been pretty popular over the years. product development in the extended enterprise, deals with partnerships, negotiation, that sort of thing, which is very important to anybody who's in a product development position these days. The Managing in Research and Innovation course talks about how you handle allocating the R&D resources of the firm, making investment decisions, so on and so forth. And then supply chain management, even though that's traditionally sort of focused more on the operations side of the house, as engineers, you really need to understand the entire value chain and how to manage that chain, both externally and internally to the organization. And then, as I said, there are many, many other choices, and I'm happy to provide you with a list if you'd like more. Any questions? Please, feel free. I haven't seen anything yet.
Mark,
yes.
I'm sorry, we just have one question. In the criteria for selection for the program, wondering, you mentioned that if a GPA is below 3.0, you will look at industry experience. And the question is, when you're looking at industry credit or other training, what kinds of experiences are you looking for? Are you looking at years of work? Are you looking at areas of responsibility? Are you looking at management background? What kinds of things do you consider?
Yeah, it's really focused on the areas in which you were working, because certainly somebody that has 2 years of experience developing products or services is going to be more attractive to this program, or this program is going to be more suited for them than somebody that's spent 10 years working in a retail environment. So it certainly is both a combination of the amount of experience, but more importantly, what you've been doing while you've been working. So again, the GPA is important because we have requirements. We have to meet our accreditation standards. But if you're, say, in the 2.8 range, for example, we oftentimes will allow you to come in on probation. But we really, it's not just because of, those requirements are not just to ensure that the program fits you, but that you're adding something to the students, the other students, to the diversity that the program provides to everybody else. So if you come in, with a really interesting background, you can really provide your learning to help other students learn as well. Of course, that generalizes to everybody else that's in the program. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. So here are just some very, very rough examples of titles for capstone projects within the MPD program. The focus here in MPD tends to be more on process and value creation. These are not generally client-based projects. It's not as if we've defined a particular set of companies and you just grab a company and there's a already sort of handcrafted project just waiting for you to deal with. That's often the case in other programs, not here. We happen to think that the real challenge in being a leader is how to start things, how to create things from a blank sheet. So we don't want to hand you projects. Now, there are many others that you can leverage, that you can build off of, but we really want you to look at the situation that you happen to be in, talk to your managers, talk to your CEO, talk to anybody that you can to get a better handle on what problems are facing the organization, are facing the company, and use that as a takeoff point to motivate you to work on something. But this is really an opportunity to give back to your sponsoring organization. As I said, there can be a significant return on investment associated with these, more than the cost, certainly more than the cost of the tuition for the program. But it's really an opportunity to get really excited. And frankly, I think this is the most important and the most exciting part of the master's program. In fact, almost any master's program, because now you're applying what you're learning to a problem that really makes sense and is important to you. So I'm not going to really go through these in detail. You can probably imagine, I'll leave these up here for a second. This is just so that you can kind of see what competencies are that our faculty look at and try to drive the curriculum that or the topics and the extent of coverage that they embed in their courses. So these are really the competencies that drive the curriculum for the entire program. I don't think you're going to see anything too surprising here, but I certainly welcome questions. As I said, I'll keep this up here for just a few seconds, and then I'll flip. There's one more page of targeted competencies. And if you'd like to know which course is there, I'm more than happy to tell you that as well. I mean, you realize we obviously have a course in project management, but there are elements of project management that show up in courses like decision risk benefit analysis and the engineering of systems sequence. And when I talk about state-of-the-art tools for design analysis and management, I'm talking about, techniques such as QFD and Pew, all of those critical parameter management, but also tools like crystal wall, at-risk, doors, trees. Those are all things that I suspect some of you have heard of before. But many tools are embedded in the coursework within this program. Here is just a list of most of the sponsors that have sent students over the years. As I mentioned, the program really launched in January of 1999. So some companies have clearly sent more students than others. I'll use Xerox as a good example. Kodak is another example. Harris, we're in our 4th cohort of students at Harris. So a lot of companies have sent a number of students. Some of them have only sent 1 or 2. But you may recognize them. In fact, one of these companies may be yours.
Mark, we have another question. The question is, can we enroll in the programs on a part-time basis, or taking 1 or 2 courses at a time, or is it a more condensed, all-at-one-time program?
It's flexible. The vast majority of our students are part-timers, either taking 1 course at a time or 2 courses at a time. I mean, that's really one of the strengths, and I apologize for not emphasizing that at the very beginning. This is really for people that are working full-time. It's very difficult as a full-time employee to take more than 2 courses at any one time. And I've got a slide here later on that talks a little bit about workload and expectations. You'll want to pay close attention to that. It's non-trivial. So this is not like a training program where you show up and come to class and then essentially forget about it until you show up again. You can expect, 5 to 7 hours of homework each week per course, plus the time that you're going to spend on the actual course material itself. So it's really designed for students that are working and come here on a part-time basis to try to extend, the experiences they're having in the work environment. Does that help? So needless to say, that will stretch things out a little bit, but it's always a trade-off. You can finish in a year and a half if you really want to, but you really better not have a serious job if you're going to try to do that. It's really too difficult. Okay, that was the end of at least the overview of the product development program. Again, please, if you have any more questions, I'll take them at any time. And now I just wanted to move into the Manufacturing Leadership Master of Science. As I said very early on, this is focused on operational excellence. This, similar to the MPD program, we built this from the ground up in a partnership between the Gleason College of Engineering and the Saunders College of Business. It was focused on students that didn't want to go for a full MBA. They really wanted to see an emphasis on manufacturing processes, operational improvement, process excellence, those kinds of things. And a traditional business program was a little light in those areas, but very heavy on the business side. So this provided the most efficient way to get a master's degree program, at least in New York State, which is 30 credits. So that's really where the motivation came from both the College of Business and the College of Engineering. Yeah, as I said, this program also has a capstone project, but unlike the MPD project, which, as I said earlier, is not really focused on a specific client, the project in the MM&L program is focused on a specific client. Now, it's not something that's handed to you. You still have to go out and find it, but it gives you the opportunity to really generate a significant return on investment, and we require that you report how much money you save, either on an annual basis or on a first-year basis. And our average up to this point is about $300,000. So it's not hard to do the math. If the program costs you roughly $50,000 to participate, but you return within the first year $300,000, I think it's kind of a no-brainer, but I'll let you and your managers decide whether that's the case or not. This program started a bit earlier than NPD in 1996. We roughly have the same kind of enrollment, about 15 per year, and I want to emphasize that we're not trying to get really, really large class sizes. This is really a very sort of personal, customized program, and we want to make sure that there's rich dialogue between the students get to know each other relatively well. We have about 220-ish graduates, and we have about 45 students in the program at any one time from more companies, because many of the companies that participate in the MM&L program tend to be smaller than in the MPD program. There's a lot of sort of career leadership replacement sorts of things that go on with some smaller companies. And so when I show you the list in a second, you'll see that there's quite a few companies that don't necessarily fall in the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 100. As I said, this is a 30-credit program, 10 courses, and it's available fully online. But as with the MPD program and MMNL, if you do happen to be in town, you can take as many as half the courses in the evenings if you so choose. We've just found that most of our students, because they're traveling, because they really don't want to spend the time on the road, they would just as soon have courses available to them remotely, which is using an online, either asynchronous or web conference format. We have the same entrance requirements, 2 years, 3.0 GPA, but the same exceptions apply. You know, if you do have something a little bit lower than that, we're happy to take a look. Don't not apply just because you see 3.0 GPA. We consider your experience just like we do in the MPD program. And even though it's 2 years here, just like in MPD, our average years of experience is closer to 12 or 13. So the folks in the program here really have quite a bit of experience. This does accept more non-engineers than the MPD program does, because as I mentioned, there was a real strong partnership with the College of Business. So we have some technology students, we have business students. We tend not to get the design students. They're more interested in product development than they are in manufacturing or operational excellence. So that's the overview of the MMNL program. Here is, I'll go through the curriculum, again, very, very briefly. This has a leadership course just like MPD does. It's a little bit more generic. It's more about personal and organizational leadership as opposed to being specific to product development or operations leadership. So you can see the topics listed there. You can probably imagine that we're going to have courses in the areas that you see below: supply chain, manufacturing systems, which focuses on a single entity, whereas supply chain management deals with the entire value chain and the entire supply chain wherever it happens to be. So there's issues around location strategy, location selection, whereas in a manufacturing system, you're really analyzing a manufacturing system within a particular type of firm or type of industry. And that's really where you see a lot of strong lean thinking and lean principles that start becoming part of the program. We also have global facilities planning, and the word global is important there because we understand that facilities are no longer co-located with manufacturing or product development. They're all over the place. So it deals with just the design as well as, you know, the flow through the facility and so on and so forth. So those are 4 really important courses in the MMNL program. We also have a duplication. We have the Engineering of Systems 1 course, which used to be called Product and Process Design, so I think you can probably imagine why it's important. Even if you happen to be on the operations side, you really need to understand the entire sort of product development, systems engineering chain of things, all the way from concept through retirement of the products that you happen to develop. So that's why that course is in both programs. We have a course called Lean Six Sigma Fundamentals, which really, when you finish that course, you will automatically receive a yellow belt, and you'll be considered green belt training. So if you decide that you want to get your green belt and don't have one, you could focus your capstone project on a green belt project and actually get your green belt as a byproduct of taking the MMNL program. You certainly don't have to, but it's sort of a nice added bonus for going through the program. We also have the Systems and Project Management course again, and Accounting for Decision Makers, because as I said earlier, you've got to understand these things, whether you're leading an operations organization or whether you're leading an engineering organization. And I already talked a little bit about the Capstone Project. It's got a strong lean orientation. So if you look at the list, and I've got a slide here that shows you some sample titles, you'll see that these are almost all, I guess what I'd call in the lean area. They're focused on waste reduction, on throughput improvement, on resource reduction, all kinds of things to save money, which is, I think, why it's really easy to generate significant return on investment. This program, because it's 30 credits and not 36 for MPD, we only have room for 1 elective, but as was the case for MPD, there are many, many choices. And again, I'll be happy to send you a list or more details if you have specific questions about whether or not a particular course or a particular set of topics is available as an elective. Here are some titles, as I mentioned, for Capstone Projects. I'll let you look through those. You know, lots of lean, lots of on-time delivery, blah, blah, blah. So we have a lot of them, and we have a list of other projects if you want to. And by the way, if you'd like to get copies of any Capstone projects for either program, just send me an email, and we'll be happy to send you a PDF. Because one of the requirements of a Capstone project is it's considered a public document. So even though we're not going to get into it now, it's not acceptable to work on a totally proprietary Capstone Project. Okay, as I did in MPD, I'll just sort of throw these up here, but I don't think there's going to be too much of a surprise. You need to be able to make sound business decisions. Again, the focus on leadership and decision making here, just as was the case in MPD. You have to be able to manage global multi-site operations. You have to understand quality and continuous improvement principles, which really have manifested themselves in terms of Lean and Six Sigma these days. Next slide. Again, of course, the global supply chain is absolutely essential, which is why that's at the core of the MMNL program. And then strong leadership and management skills. If you've seen something there that you don't understand or you're surprised by or you think is missing, by all means, either ask a question or send me a note. Here's a laundry list of some of the sponsors. There are more than this, but just to give you an idea. And as I said earlier, some of these, if you're not from the area, you may not recognize them at all. If you're from the area, you'll recognize them. A lot of fairly small companies. Maybe yours is there. Again, these slides will be available, so let me skip ahead here. And in addition, as I said at the very beginning, part of our portfolio are professional certificates. What we've really done is we've taken a look at the program and said, you know, there are ways of packaging several courses, and we've chosen the number 3, I think for good reason. It provides you the opportunity to focus in an area, but we also give you an elective as one of the 3 courses, so that if you want to tailor it to a specific domain, you know, if you're in product development, but you're you know, in a pharmaceutical industry, you may want one sort of an elective. If you're in, you know, hard goods manufacturing environment, or product development environment, you may want to choose another elective. If you're in services, you may want a different elective. So we provide you with a little bit of flexibility there. These are 3 courses each. We have the same admission criteria so that we don't get into any trouble when you decide you may want to go on from a certificate to the full Master of Science program. So they're fully online, these courses. They're 100% transferable. You get a certificate accomplishment, but I do want you to understand that the certificate name does not appear on your transcript. All the courses, everything is fully accredited, but the name will not show on your transcript. And for most people at this level, you don't really care what shows up on your transcript. You just want to make sure you have something to put on your wall, which is the certificate. So these can be delivered on site, they can be delivered in a blended format, or they can be delivered in fully asynchronous mode if you have a group of folks from your organization that want to do this. And we've delivered this a number of times to companies in the upstate New York region. This is just another way of taking a look at how you can accomplish the MPD degree by walking through a series of certificates. So from the prior slide, if you took this 3-course certificate in systems engineering with a 3-course in project management and a 3-course certificate in supply chain management, you'd have 9 of the 12 courses, and all you have left is the Capstone project, which is 6 credits, and an elective, and voila, you're done and you have the Master of Science in Product Development. So this is just a way of looking at it a little bit differently. So if you're not really committed to diving into a full program, do it in piecemeal fashion. The end result is still the same. Similarly, you can do this with the MMNL program. Unlike MPD, though, you don't need to take the full systems engineering certificate because Engineering of Systems 2 is not a required course. So you have that 1 course, but you still have the 3-course certificates in project management and supply chain. And then you have 9 more credits again, which would be an elective, the Lean Six Sigma Fundamentals, and the Capstone Project. And as I said before, the endpoint is the same. You have a master's in manufacturing leadership. This was just a breakdown of the courses in the program, but we try to be flexible because, again, you're getting a certificate of accomplishment. We want to make sure that these certificates really meet your need and meet the need of your sponsor. So we try to be as flexible as possible, but this just shows if you want to do the full degree via certificates, this is how we construct the certificates to enable you to do that. I just have one slide about the online format because there's often lots of questions about, is online as good as, in the class, so on and so forth. You're probably aware of the statistics that that roughly only about a 25% to 30% of anything that's presented in a classroom environment is actually retained by students. So you just got to start from that perspective, recognizing that, you know, the traditional notion of a faculty member standing in front of the classroom and lecturing is not a particularly great, is that me or you? Okay. Is not the most effective sort of learning modality that's available to you. We've made a shift into online. We did web conferencing for a couple of years, but now because our students are located all over the place, it's really important that we provide an asynchronous delivery format, and that's what we've done with our programs. The challenge, of course, is that the program needs to be as good at or better than on campus, and I think that's what we found. We have some very strong support for the way in which our courses are delivered. By having the asynchronous model, it allows students to do much more, I guess, project work. They still do lots of chats, but they have time to think about things before they get engaged in a chat or some other kind of real-time activity, because they're doing a lot of this stuff at their own speed. They don't have to be prepared for a particular class time activity. So we've been very successful, and we found that students really do like the asynchronous delivery mode. But as I said, if you happen to be in the area and you really like the traditional format, you're more than welcome to take either evening or daytime classes here on the RIT campus. I should mention that we also have something called the Innovative Learning Institute, so they keep us on top of what state-of-the-art techniques, tools are available to help faculty and help students do a much more effective job of learning in an asynchronous online environment. And now the important part, which is the logistics. So this is RIT's tuition rate. We charge on the basis of a standard part-time rate, which this year is $1,673 a credit hour. So one course is about $5 grand. 3 courses for a certificate is about $15,000. The full M&L program is $50,000, and the full MPD program is roughly $60,000. For those of you that are familiar with RIT, we made a transition 2 years ago to quarters, and we've actually managed to lower our price about 3% over what we were charging in quarters on the MM&L side, and about 7% lower than what we were charging in the quarter-based system for the MPD program. So RIT is not inexpensive. There certainly is funding available through our financial aid department, so I encourage you to talk to them. We also provide corporate discounts for groups of students from 10 to 20%. We've actually been going a little bit higher than that for strong corporations that provide significant numbers of students. So we're happy to talk more with you about that, but we think these are fairly competitive based on the kinds of programs that are comparable to MML and MPD. On the workload side, this is very important. This addresses a question that was asked earlier. You can expect on a weekly basis to see about 2 hours to go through the material. We usually have an optional live office hour. It certainly is not required, but we found that most of our students like to participate. It gives you a chance to sort of get grounded, in a live format, either through chat or through a web conference with your instructor. And then you can expect somewhere between 4 and 7 hours in homework. So the net is about 7 to 10 hours per week per course. So again, if you think about, what your current bandwidth is, given your work life, given your desire to have a personal life and so on, you need to figure out where you're going to come up with this extra time. And as I said, it's really 1 to 2 courses per semester represent a normal workload. And then the last bullet is just to show you what RIT's calendar looks like. Our fall is from late August to late September, spring is late January through late May, and then summer is a condensed format of 10 weeks from June through mid-August.
Mark, we have one question. Can you speak to the advantage of enrolling as a group from a common employer versus being enrolled as an individual student? Is one better, worse, and is the experience different?
Well, there might be a cost benefit in being part of a group from a company, so I'll leave that aside for the moment. From a learning standpoint, it's always advantageous to work with other people from different backgrounds. Now, that probably is most pronounced when you're working with students from other companies. but working with students from your own company, for colleagues, is great because you have, first of all, you have an immediate capstone team that you can work with at the end of the program, but it also allows you, to do things, after, when you're not doing the school-related stuff, you can continue to talk, you can continue to interact, you can build on one another's experience. So there are some real advantages to having at least a small group of people to work with. So we oftentimes have, we have groups of students that are in different companies, and even without our suggestion, they tend to try to work together. They try to leverage each other's skill sets, both strengths and weaknesses, and it's just a richer learning environment. So there's been a lot written on the cohort-based learning model, and this is really sort of a mini cohort if you have a few students at your company. So yes, it's an advantage. Not required, but we have, most of our courses have project-based work. So even if you're not, you're not in a small corporate-based team, you will be teamed with students from other companies, and that, as I said earlier, is a very rich environment to learn. That help?
Yes.
Okay.
And one last question, can you speak to the experience for people who are coming from a service industry rather than a manufacturing industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's very little in this program that's not relevant to services. Then that's part of the reason why it's nice to have electives. You can do something like CRM, you can do business, you can do integrated business systems. You can take some courses that may have a little bit stronger alliance or allegiance or closeness to services. But, if I go through every one of the courses, and it's very difficult to see how they don't apply. We did this very aggressively a number of years ago, and actually we're marketing our program as a services innovation program. And we found very, very little content that we were really missing. But, if you do see something that you say, hey, gee, I think this course might make a little more sense than this course. So, for example, service systems as opposed to engineering of systems. We have a service of systems course. We'd be willing to make an exchange for that. So there are some core places where we can actually shift some courses in place of others that are in the program, but I think you'll be hard-pressed to find things that are really missing. Okay, anything else, Lydia, all right? All right, that's it. So this is just the context, but we'll be happy to follow up with you and make sure that you don't have any more questions. As I said, you have both Lou's email, my email, our phone numbers. Don't hesitate to call. And I really want to thank you personally for participating. I hope this has been helpful. And best of luck in whatever you decide to do. Thank you very much.
All right, terrific. If you do have additional questions after the end of the webinar, you can email them to the contacts that Mark has offered here, or you can always email them to ritalum@rit.edu, or they can be tweeted to @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITWebinars, and we will direct your questions to Mark. Note that all participants will receive an email from us in the next few days with a link to today's webinar recording. Mark and Lou, thanks for being our distinguished speakers today, and thank you all, our listeners, for joining us for today's webinar. Please consider joining us for our upcoming webinars in October. Next Wednesday, October 7th, we present Long-Term Care Planning 101, the basics, with our presenter, Susan Subin. The following Tuesday, October 13th, we will welcome noted RIT Professor Emeritus Frank Romano for his webinar, What's News? Thanks again to all of you for joining us.